I found the small, blue pill at the bottom of the dog's water bowl at 3 a.m., and that was the moment I realized my daughter wasn't just worried about my health. She was actively trying to ruin it. I stood in the moonlit kitchen, the cold linoleum biting into my bare feet, holding that soggy bit of chemistry between my thumb and forefinger. It was a sedative, a high-dose pill used for extreme anxiety, something I had never been prescribed. I looked at the dark hallway leading to the guest room where my daughter, Sarah, and her husband were staying, and for the first time in 70 years, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I didn't flush the pill. I didn't scream. I walked back to my bedroom, hid the pill in a velvet jewelry box, and began to think like a scientist again. My name is Evelyn Reed. I am 70 years old, and for 38 years, I was the chief pharmacist at one of the busiest hospitals in the state. I spent my life in a world of milligrams, half-lives, and drug interactions. I was the person who caught the doctor's mistakes. I was the one who could look at a patient's chart and tell you exactly why their heart was racing or why their mind was clouded. I viewed the human body as a complex chemical equation that always had to balance. My late husband, Thomas, used to joke that I didn't cook dinner. I compounded it. When he died 4 years ago, the balance of my own life shifted, but I never lost my precision. I knew my body, and I knew my mind. Sarah moved in 6 months ago. She said she was worried about me being alone in this big Victorian house, but I knew her jewelry business was failing and her husband, Mark, had a habit of betting on things he didn't understand. At first, it was nice to have the company. But then, the episodes started. I'd wake up in the afternoon with no memory of the morning. I'd find myself sitting on the porch in my nightgown, confused about what day it was. Sarah would be there, her face a mask of tragic concern, filming me on her phone. "Look at you, Mom," she'd whisper. "You don't even know where you are. We really need to think about the Magnolia Gardens facility. It's what Dad would have wanted." She was using the phone to build a case. She wanted a judge to see a confused, helpless old woman so she could take over my estate. A house worth nearly $1 million and a retirement fund I'd spent 40 years building. She thought she was being clever by slipping the sedatives into my morning coffee, but she forgot that I had spent 4 decades identifying substances by their texture, their weight, and their bitter aftertaste. The confusion wasn't dementia. It was a chemical fog she was spraying into my life. I spent the next 3 days playing the part of the fading mother. I let my hair stay messy. I wandered around the living room looking for lost keys that I had actually hidden in my shoe. I watched them through the reflection of the microwave and the glass of the picture frames. I saw them whispering in the corner, looking at brochures for expensive assisted living homes that looked more like prisons with better curtains. Mark was already measuring the walls for where he'd put his big screen TV once the house was liquidated. But while I was playing the victim, I was also conducting an experiment. I have a small, private laboratory in my basement, a hobby space where I make my own organic soaps and essential oils. While they were out, running errands, which usually meant meeting with real estate agents, I was downstairs. I took a sample of my own blood using a kit I'd kept from my working days. I used a reagent test I'd ordered online under a different name. The results were exactly what I expected: high levels of a potent benzodiazepine. I didn't stop there. I knew that in a court of law, my own tests might be dismissed as the ramblings of a confused woman. I needed an independent witness. I contacted a former colleague, a man named Dr. Aris who ran a private pathology lab. I didn't tell him it was for me. I told him I was working on a research project about drug interactions in the elderly. I sent him the samples and waited. The intervention happened on a rainy Thursday evening. Sarah and Mark had invited a woman named Brenda, a senior placement specialist, who looked like she'd never had a hair out of place in her life. They sat me down at the heavy oak dining table. "Mom," Sarah said, her voice trembling with fake emotion, "we're all here because we love you. But we can't ignore the facts anymore. You're leaving the stove on. You're wandering. The specialist here thinks it's time for a more structured environment." Mark pushed a set of papers across the table. "It's a temporary guardianship agreement, Evelyn. Just to help Sarah manage your bills and your medical care while you get settled at Magnolia Gardens. It's the safest thing for everyone." I looked at the papers. I looked at the specialist, who was nodding with that practiced, patronizing smile. Then I looked at my daughter. "Sarah," I said, my voice clear and steady for the first time in weeks, "did you know that the drug you've been giving me has a half-life of nearly 20 hours? It's quite impressive how it accumulates in the fatty tissues of the brain." The room went dead silent. The specialist blinked, her smile faltering. Sarah's face turned a dusty shade of white. "Mom, what are you talking about? You're having another episode." I reached into the pocket of my cardigan and pulled out a thick, yellow envelope. I didn't give it to Sarah. I gave it to the specialist. "This is a certified toxicology report from Aris Pathology," I said. "It shows that for the last 3 months, I have been systematically poisoned with a controlled substance I was never prescribed. I also have a second envelope here. It contains video footage from a hidden camera I installed in the kitchen, the one hidden inside the spice rack. It shows Sarah dissolving a blue pill into my coffee every morning at 7:30 a.m. Brenda, the specialist, pulled her hands away from the table as if it were on fire. "Sarah, is this true?" she whispered. Mark tried to grab the envelope, but I stood up, and I didn't look like a woman who needed a structured environment. I looked like the chief pharmacist who once ran a department of 60 people. "Sit down, Mark," I said. "I've already sent the digital copies of these files to my attorney and the local police. I told them that if I didn't check in with them by 9 p.m. tonight, they were to open the files and execute the pre-filed charges for elder abuse and attempted fraud." Sarah started to sob, but they weren't the tragic tears from before. They were the tears of a cornered animal. "We were going to lose everything, Mom. Mark lost the money from the shop, and the bank was going to take our house. We thought we could just take care of you and use the equity. We weren't going to hurt you. You were hurting my mind, Sarah," I said. "You were trying to steal the one thing I have left, my identity. You were willing to let me spend the rest of my life in a fog, thinking I was losing my soul, just so you could pay off a few bad debts. That isn't love. That's a chemical strike." I gave them 1 hour. I told them to pack their bags and leave the keys on the counter. If they were gone by 8 p.m., I would tell the police I had misplaced the evidence. But I also told them that I was changing my will. I was leaving the house and the fund to a local charity that provides health care for low-income seniors. They would get nothing. Not now, and not ever. I watched them drive away in the rain. They didn't look back. The house felt huge and empty, but for the first time in months, it felt clean. I walked into the kitchen, took the coffee pot, and scrubbed it until my reflection shone in the stainless steel. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea, pure, honest tea, and sat by the window. It's been 4 months since that night. Sarah and Mark are living in a small apartment 2 states away. They don't call, and I don't expect them to. You can't fix a broken bond with a simple prescription. Sometimes, the only cure is to cut the connection entirely. I spend my days now volunteering at a free clinic downtown. I help the elderly patients understand their medications. I teach them how to look for the side effects that aren't listed on the bottle. The ones that come from people, not pills. They call me the medicine woman. I like that. It's a lot better than the confused woman in the nightgown. My mind is as sharp as a surgical scalpel, and my heart is at peace. I've realized that being 70 isn't a disease, it's a vantage point. I can see the flaws in the system because I've spent my life studying the way things are supposed to work. People ask me if I'm lonely in this big Victorian house. I tell them that I'm never alone when I have my work. I have my garden, I have my lab, and I have my truth. I am Evelyn Reed, the chief pharmacist, and I am the one who balances the equations in this house. My life isn't a liquidated asset. It's a masterwork of chemistry and resilience. And as I sit on my porch watching the sun set over the oak trees, I know that the formula for my future is perfectly stable. To the children who think their parents are a burden to be managed, listen closely. We are the ones who taught you how to walk. We are the ones who know exactly what you're capable of, even when you think we aren't looking. If you try to dim our light, you might find that we have a backup generator you never knew existed. We are the keepers of the history, the masters of the house, and we are not going anywhere. My house is bright, my mind is clear, and the blue pills are gone. I am exactly where I need to be, and I am exactly who I was meant to be. The audit is over, the experiment is a success, and the balance has been restored. I am Evelyn Reed, and I am finally, truly, in control of my own dose. I've started a small class for the women in my neighborhood. I call it, the science of self-defense. We don't learn karate, we learn how to read a legal document. We learn how to spot a lie in a whisper. We learn that our age is our armor, not our weakness. They look at me with such hope, and it reminds me why I spent all those years in the hospital. I wasn't just saving lives, I was learning how to save my own. The house feels full again, even though it's just me and the dog. The dog is doing better, too. He doesn't have to worry about pills in his water bowl anymore. We go for long walks in the woods, and I point out the plants to him, the ones that heal and the ones that hurt. He wagged his tail as if he understood. And maybe he does. Animals have a way of knowing who the predators are, even when the predators are wearing a daughter's face. I am 70 years old, and I have never felt more alive. I have my health, I have my home, and I have my honor. That is the ultimate prescription for a happy life. And as the moon rises over the roof of my beautiful, strong house, I know that I am the one who holds the key to the cabinet. I am the pharmacist of my own fate, and the prognosis is excellent.